Hey guys, Mike here from MasterYourMix, and today I want to share with you the most important thing that you need to have in place before you start working on any mix at all. And that is having a consistent, solid, repeatable workflow that you can use in every single mix. Workflows are super crucial because they allow you to work smarter, faster, keep more focused, know what to do next, and keep track of your progress so that you know when you're done working on your mix. So many people don't have a workflow to follow, and as a result, they have a lot of trouble completing mixes because they have no clear focus on what to do in order to know when they're done. And this is a very big trap to fall in because if you're constantly searching for problems, you're going to constantly be second guessing your work and you're going to have a hard time moving on. So, having a workflow is super crucial because it's going to give you a lot more clarity and focus along the way. So today I want to share with you my personal 6-step workflow so that you can apply it to your own work and make the process of mixing much faster and easier. The first stage is the organizational stage. This is where we get rid of a lot of boring tasks that really have nothing to do with audio so that we don't become distracted later on. So some things that you would do at this stage would be things like condensing regions, naming tracks, color coding them, positioning the tracks at certain spots in your mix window, assigning groups, or adding markers. Now, these are all tasks that you don't want to have to stop mixing to do because as soon as you have to stop, then it kind of resets your brain and you lose focus on what you're actually listening for in your track. So let's get rid of all of these boring mechanical tasks first so that they don't become distractions later on. Step 2 is the routing stage. And at this stage, basically what we want to do is organize the signal flow. Now, one thing that I like to do at this stage is I like for all of my individual instruments to go to their own instrument bus. And then from that instrument bus, I route everything to a master bus. The reason I like to do it this way is so that I can process my instruments at different stages. So say, for example, I have my drum tracks. I can process my kick and snare on an individual level, or let's say that I want to apply some compression to the entire drum kit. Well, then I only need to add compression to the drum bus. But then maybe at the end of the mix, I want to add some compression to my entire mix, all of the instruments, the drums, guitars, vocals, all of that kind of stuff. Then I like to add that processing on my master bus. So by routing your signals early on, it allows you to have a lot of flexibility in the processing stage. Stage 3 is the rough balance stage, and all we're trying to do here is create a starting point for the rest of the mix. At this stage, you don't want to be concerned with adding processing to your tracks, so we're not focusing on EQ, compression, effects, that kind of stuff. Instead, you're just trying to get a rough balance of volumes so that later on in this workflow, you can listen to things carefully without having other tracks blasting your ears off and distracting you, right? So when you're adding the top end to your kick drum, you don't want to be dealing with extremely loud guitars because that's not how it's going to be in the final mix, right? So you just want to get everything at a level that feels comfortable, and that'll be a great starting point as we move on in the workflow. It's also a really good idea at this stage to really pay attention to your tracks and come up with a game plan for how you want to process your tracks and what you need to do moving forward. So listen for things like whether or not you need to make your tracks brighter or darker. Do you need to add more attack to something, or do you need to soften it up? Do you need to feature certain instruments at certain parts of the song? For example, a guitar solo. Maybe that has to come up in the mix during that section. So really just pay attention to your tracks here and kind of jot down some ideas for what you want to be doing later on. And this will help make the whole process of mixing much faster. Step 4 is the processing stage, and this is where you're going to finally start adding things like EQ, compression, and your mix is going to start to really come to life. This is the stage where you're likely going to be spending the most amount of time. So you want to make sure that you're doing this in a organized way. So one thing that I really like to do is I always like to work from left to right in my mix session. And I also like to always start with the drums, then I move on to the bass, then the guitars, then the vocals. And by doing it this way, it allows me to know what to work on next and allows me to keep track of all of the instruments that I've already processed. So I can then at the end of my mix look back and say, yep, I've done all of these tracks, we're done. And this is a major thing because if you just kind of have tracks organized in a random fashion and you just go from your kick drum to your vocal to your guitar to your bass track to guitar 2 and you just have this random approach, it's going to be very difficult to keep track of what to be focused on. So by working in a specific order, it definitely helps keep your focus. Step 5 is where I like to start introducing special effects such as reverb, delay, chorus, and other modulation effects. Now, after I've already created some separation and clarity and balance between my tracks using EQ and compression, it's really important to then assess whether or not adding effects will actually help benefit the vibe and energy in your mix. So many people by default just slap on reverb or delay on a vocal, but they don't really think about the repercussions of it and whether or not it's actually necessary in the context of your mix. So at this step, you really want to assess the vibe and atmosphere of your track to decide whether or not it is necessary to use reverb and delay to add some extra width or depth to your mix. The last stage is the automation stage, and this is where you're going to add a lot of extra life and movement into your mix. This is where you're going to do things like add volume rides in the choruses to make the choruses get louder and more energetic. You might control the volume of a vocalist performance, so bringing up the quietest parts and bringing down the loudest parts. You could automate EQs in order to maybe roll off certain frequencies during certain sections of the song. Basically, the idea here is to use automation to add a lot of movement and excitement in your mix, because if you have a mix that is always consistent at the same level, it's going to become boring, right? As the song gets more energetic and as the choruses come in, you want things to sound bigger and have more liveliness to them. So automation is a great way to do that. So just to recap, let's go through each stage one more time. So first we start off with organization, then we get into routing, we focus on the rough balance. From there, we then add processing like EQ and compression. Then we go on to adding effects. And then lastly, we automate everything. So by following this 6-step process in every single one of your mixes, it's going to allow you to work faster, smarter, keep focused. You're going to know what to do next, and you're going to know when you're done. If you're interested in learning more and you want to go much more in depth with each step of this process, that is the focus of my brand new book, The Mixing Mindset. Inside of this book, you're going to learn the step-by-step process for mixing, and you're going to learn how to analyze each one of your instruments and ask yourself the right questions every step of the way so that you know what to do with things like EQ, compression, effects, and more. And the goal here is that you're going to learn how to create better mixes faster. See, the process of mixing doesn't need to be difficult, and all it takes is having a streamlined workflow and a solid understanding of how to use the tools. And once you have it all clearly laid out for you, then it becomes easy to stay focused and make the right moves. So I wrote this book to help make the process of mixing much easier for you, and I want to help you create the best mixes of your life. So for that reason, I'm inviting you to check out the book because I know that it's going to help take your mixes to the next level. So I'm going to leave a link below this video to where you can purchase the book, and I can't wait for you to get your hands on it and to get your feedback and to hear how much of an impact it's made on your work. So make sure to click on it below, and that's it for this video, guys. I hope that you found this workflow very, very helpful, and I can't wait to hear about how you use it in your own mixes. That's it. We'll talk soon. Take care.